G'day and welcome back to part 4 of my Time Spot radio restoration. Now with the radio and the clock and the speaker all fixed up and working well, I'm going to have a look at the case today and we can finally put the radio back together and test it out. So let's have a look at this cabinet. The cabinet itself is in pretty good condition. It only has a bit of an issue here where there's a bit of veneer missing. I've removed the 2 dial lenses. This center section comes out, so I'll take that out. There's just 2 screws and a strip of metal holding that in. I think that whole center is going to come out. Removing that has left a big gap in the center. It has a rattan grill in here, so I'll turn it over, we'll see how that comes out. There's the back of it, just a couple of screws and that'll all come out. These half round bits of grill are screwed in, so I'll number those and I'll remove them as well. We'll come back and see what we need to do to the case. That's stripped down, I can't go any further. It was good being able to remove those little half dowels there. It means I can clean them up and I don't have to try and sand around little corners and things. So that's good. I will have to repair that. As I said in the last video, the viewings drop right off when I do the cabinets, so people aren't all that interested. I will take this away, I'll strip it all off with some paint stripper, sand it back. We'll come back, we might try and repair that. And there's a couple of little blocks missing from the back. So when I come back, we'll do that. It should be all stripped back. Well, there it is. It's all cleaned up. I've taken all the old finish off it. I did a repair here for that little bit of missing veneer. So that looks okay. It'll disappear once the stain's on it, I hope. I've cleaned out the back as well. That had all the mud wasps and layers of dirt. So I've washed all that out. That's come up pretty good. It needs to have another coat of something on it to bring it back. I'm not sure what I'm going to use yet. There's some little blocks of wood missing here. They were holding the back on. You screw the back to it. So I've made new ones up and they will go in here. So I'll glue them in. I'm going to get that one out. It's broken and cracked. I've got some pincers here. I'll grab it. Should be able to just take it away. It's got nails in it. I'll remove the nails. I've cut some little blocks out. So I'll just glue them on there. Same deal with this longer one. Bit of adhesive on there. Smush it around a little bit. Give it a good push down. There we go. And just wipe off the excess. I've moved this back one. There we go. And there's another one to go here. This is the opposite wall to the one we just did. And that'll do. I'll give those a couple of hours to cure and then I'll try and refinish the inside here. I've prepped this up. It's ready to put a coat of shellac on it. And what I'm going to do is put a coat of shellac on it, let it sit overnight, and then I'll put the stain on. The idea is that the stain doesn't soak into the wood. It just puts a layer on there and you can see through the stain and see the wood grain underneath. The suggestion to do this was from Pete. He's a fellow I know on Facebook and he's a furniture restorer. So he said to do this, so I'll do it. And I did this on the Eris radio a few months ago and that came out really, really nice. So this is a normal shellac mixture made up from flakes and I've added another 50% of methylated spirits to it. And I can't quite remember, I think the Americans call it wood alcohol, methylated spirits. I think there's something therapeutic about watching the grain come out when you put a finish on. I mean, even if you put water on, but you can see the grain come through. I've given that a good coat of the shellac. I'll let it tack off and then I'll just polish it off with another rag. I'll let it dry overnight and tomorrow I'll put the stain on. This has been drying overnight and I've run over it with some very fine steel wool just to make sure there's no little lumps on there. And I'm going to put some elm on it and this is kind of a brown colour. And I think that'll match what it used to be. I think it was a brown colour more than the walnut colour that I usually use. This is the other end. Interestingly, they used a very light filler when they filled up the nail hole, so this stain is not covering it. Okay, that's about it. I'll let that tack off for a bit, and I'll have to buff it up with a rag just to make sure you get all the highs and lows out of it. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. The stain's been drying for about 4 hours, so I can put the top coat on. I left the camera in there a bit longer than I was going to, but it's looking pretty good. That's one coat. As I said, another 5 coats to go. I'll let that dry for an hour or so, come back, do the next coat, and so on and so on. We'll have a look when it's finished. I'm rubbing the finish back just to smooth it off a little bit. I've put about 6 or 7 coats on this thing. I actually had to strip it off twice. One time the bit of an ear lifted, and another time it got a sag in it. So I had to strip it back and start again. But it's come up okay now. I just have some fine wet and dry. This is about P400 grit. That's the metric standard, not the American standard. I think it's a little bit too coarse actually, so I'm going to change to 600. But I'm going to rub all this back like I always do. And as usual, I'll use the 2 automotive cutting compounds just to bring back the luster that I always look for. I'm not going to show me doing any of this. I've done it before. Have a look at the Eris radio. I'll put a link up above if you want to see how I do it. So leave me with this. I'll come back when this is finished and we can start putting the radio back together. The polishing's all done. It's come up good enough. It's not one of the best built cabinets around, but it'll be fine. That's what it is. I can reassemble it now. So the first thing I'll do is put the grill cloth back in. This is the original grill cloth that was in there. I think it's rattan, but whatever it is, I've repainted it. It had faded. I found some colours there where it hadn't faded, and this matches it pretty well. So I've given it a coat of paint. It's actually paint. It simply fits in there. Then it had some little curved blocks to hold it, one on each end, and it had some staples along the top. I'll refit these 2 blocks, but I'm going to try something else for the rest of it. I've turned the case around. It's actually sitting on its top. I'm going to put this edge in first. I've made up a little block here, and I'm going to put that in there. I'll put a staple here first, make sure this is all square. I'll hold it with another staple down this end, and then everything will be squared up. Alright, I'll staple this one. I'm just checking to make sure the grill cloth is aligned straight with the bars here, and it looks pretty good. So I'll staple that. I've centered this piece of wood in the case, so I'll just drill a small hole. I'll put a screw in there to hold it. I've just checked to make sure that cloth's still aligned. I'll put another screw down here. I'll just finish off by putting the other 2 in. I've refitted the 2 retaining blocks there. I made a new speaker baffle. The old one had delaminated, and that slides in there. And I have another little block here, and what I didn't show you before was it has a rebate in this one and the other one as well, and I'll show you why in a minute. But that simply goes on there like that. So let me screw that down and we'll continue. So now we've got 2 blocks there. There's a rebate on the bottom, rebate on the top. I printed out this little grid and it should fit between the 2 rebates, I hope. I'll have to bend it out, I think. And then if I push it in, there it goes. And a bit too far there. So that should hold that grill cloth up against the dowels. That's it from the front, and it looks good. It's quite solid there. So that shouldn't sag over the years. So, all right, so that's that done. I've printed up some little feet to go on the bottom. So I'll screw those on. I've cut some laser felts. I'll put that in there, and I'll do the other 3 and come back. This little Bakelite piece sits in here. And just make sure it's in the center. It had this bar across here that was holding that little Bakelite bit in, and 2 screws as well. I can now fit the two plastic lenses that I made in part 3. Now these were held in with little tacks last time. I'm going to put a little dab of hot glue on there. If anyone needs to get it out later on, or I need to, the hot glue will give way easily. I've cleaned and polished these aluminium rings. They go inside there. There's two little screws that go in here into the wood. I'll do that off camera. The screws are tiny, so they're too fiddly. I'll do it off camera and I'll come back when it's finished. Both of those reflectors are in now. I need to paint this wood here black, and I'll take it inside and we can refit the chassis. I'm back inside again. There's a couple of things I need to do before I can put it back in the case. Something I'll update with you is the clock here. This has been running for days and days. It's running very well. I painted the hands this blue colour here. I did all 3 hands, and I couldn't tell which was the hour hand and which was the alarm. So I ended up painting these black and left that blue, and I still couldn't tell. So I've painted the centre silver and just left the blue tip on the end. So now I can see what the time is without getting confused with the alarm time. Before I put it back in the case, I need to replace this card here that has the tuning on, off, all that sort of thing. So I've reproduced it on my computer. It's a different colour brown to this one, but I've matched the grill cloth, so it's a similar brown to what's on the grill cloth. Here's one that I've prepared earlier. So I've glued this in the centre. I've cut it out, glued it in the centre and punched some holes in it. And that can just go on there like that. That's how it sits. I will put a little bit of tape on the ends, but the knobs will hold it back where it needs to go. I've taped over both ends to hold it. The knobs can go on now. I have to tip it up so I can get to some of the screws on the knobs. I'll do that, and there's another job before I put it back in the case. The speaker, when it's mounted in the radio, has the terminals facing just at the back of the radio. So these are B+ voltages higher actually. So I don't like that. I'm going to try and make some sort of cover and just cover them up. I've removed the wires from the speaker. I'm going to try this braided heat shrink and put it on these wires here, make it look a bit pretty. That's about all. I'll feed this in. I don't know if I'm going to make it all the way or not. Okay, I'll just try and get it as far down as I can because it hasn't come through the other end yet. Now hopefully I can just grab them and pull them through. They're folded back so they would go through the heat shrink. So they're a bit shorter than they're going to be in the end. There we go. Let's try and shrink it and see what happens. Doesn't look too bad. It's going to take a while. It's done. I probably could have used a smaller diameter. This is 12mm, which is half an inch or so. So I probably could have gone down maybe to 10mm or something like that. So it's got a bit of a sharp edge on it. But anyway, it's going to do the job. I can solder these wires on again. And I'll put a bit of heat shrink on, and hopefully it'll shrink down to the right size and cover that terminal block up. It's not very pretty, but it'll at least stop people sticking their fingers in there, mainly me. Alright, let's try and get this beast into the case. Here's the front of it in all its goblin glory. It looks pretty good. These dials look fantastic. Look at the volume and the clock control here. That one's okay. I don't think I can adjust that any further. The volume control I can move a little bit to the left there. Here's the retaining screw for the volume control, so I can let that go a bit. And I'll just center it. I can see through the radio and see that it's centered. It's not touching, and I can't move that one any further in. Actually, I adjusted that one and I did manage to move it in a tiny bit. So they're both about the center now. Alright, that looks better. They're both in the center now. I'll mount the speaker back on the new board. I'll slot that in there. I've drilled a couple of holes in the new panel there, and it can secure it up to the top of the radio. I think we're all done. I've turned it around, I've plugged it into the power, put an antenna on. I'm going to see what it looks like when it lights up. That looks fantastic. Boy, that dial looks brilliant. Gosh, that's nice. And there it is.
Food, community, connection, Brisbane and the arts. She didn't do anything by halves, and our city is all...
I'll just tune around a little bit. I won't do a full tune yet.
3862-1744.
Sounds alright. There's still some things to do, so I'll do that when it's all finished.
This idea of this constant discarding, the value
actually sounds good.
That goes into a book, the effort that goes into writing a book, you know, the process that goes
it's got a nice big speaker. All right, I'll leave it at that. I'll just turn the lights off for a minute. We'll have a look at this dial. I don't know how it looks in the camera, but in the room here, it looks fantastic. This glass here looks like crystal. The dials are bright and well lit. Yeah, it looks really impressive. So that'll be the highlight of the radio. The rest of the case isn't that fantastic, but the dials are magnificent. All right, I'll turn it off. I still need to make a back for this thing, so let's do that. When I got the radio, it didn't have this top back panel. It has the bottom panel here, and that sits in there like that. And then there's a second panel that comes down and sits over the top of that, so there's actually a little gap under there. I can remake this bottom panel, and I can use this panel as a pattern. For the top panel, I'll have to start from scratch. I found a photo of the back on the internet. I was able to import it into GIMP, which is the paint program, and just stretch it out so that it was square again and get the measurements correct. I then imported it into Lightburn, which is the laser cutting software, and I use that as a pattern. So just draw a rectangle around it, then recreate the little slots, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, and so on, and make up that grid. Group the grid, and copy and paste two more down the bottom there. I measured from here to here and here to here, and I found the center of the circle for the time set knob. So that's this pattern finished. I'll do the same for the lower panel. I'll have to scan this with my scanner and just do the same procedure for this one. I made 2 test cuts with this thick paper, and it lines up perfectly on the radio, so I can do a real one now. The original covers had this brown leather look finish on them. I have a length of this covering here, and it's a bookbinding cover, I think. Anyway, it'll look good. It's brown, and it'll look alright. I reckon it'll look good. I think I should be able to cut both of these in the laser cutter, so I can just do one cut down the end here. I've got the fabric underneath the board there, so I'll just cut around that. I forgot to tell you what this board is. It's 1800 GSM or 3mm thick cardboard. I'll use some of this Sally's Quick Grip. This works pretty well. So I'll spray both sides, let them tack off, and then just put one on top of the other. That'll need about 5 minutes or so, and then I can join the two together. This is dried enough to put it down. I'll try and smooth it out as I go. So I made a little impromptu squeezy type thing here, or squeegee. And hopefully I won't get any creases in it. That looks pretty good. That looks very good. My impromptu squeegee worked pretty good. I'll get rid of this excess around the edges. That's come out fantastic. I'm really happy with it. So I'll put this on the laser cutter and I'll cut out the pattern. Here are the two back covers. They look sensational. I painted the back with some clear acrylic paint to stop it attracting moisture. The original lower back had some text on it, so I've got to reinstate that. And I'll use my vinyl cutter again as I did on the RCA Victor that Buzz sent me. That was in part 3. Here it is here. You probably can't see it, but it says external speakers, so I'll put that onto the new back. I was going to eyeball this. I was going to put tape down or something, but I think I can do it close enough. I've removed the backing so you can actually see the text now. Now I should be able to just peel this off, and that should stay there. There it is. A little bit of a push down, and this is called permanent vinyl. I'm sure you could get it off, but it's pretty robust. I've put the gram sticker on. This is the text for the aerial and earth. Once again, push it down, peel off the piece of plastic, and then push it down again to make sure it stays there. Here are the two backs, and they look very, very good. I am so happy with these. This is the first time I've ever used the laser cutter to cut anything like that. This is the reason I bought the laser cutter, was to cut backs. So I've cut lots of stuff, but not a back. And putting the vinyl on the top, it cut through that easily. Yeah, it's worked really well. All right, well, I'll put them on the radio. I think I've finished inside there. I'm going to put these panels on. I managed to get some nice brass slotted screws from eBay. And while I was waiting for the screws to come, I had this plugged in and running, and it ran for a week, and all of a sudden the clock stopped. I gave it a bit of a whack and it started running again. If anyone's got any ideas on how to make it more reliable, please let me know. That's the back panels finished. That looks really nice. There it is. A bit after 9, the radio's come on by itself. I thought I'll just run through some stations at night time, because we get a bit better reception at night, of course. I don't have a very good antenna, and I'm in a hole, so I don't get a lot of reception anyway.
Organised and set up, and the landscaping done. So
this is a very strong station.
Fundraising challenge.
It works good. Well, it sounds good.
Well, that's the international experience she will accumulate. Of course, this is.
Yeah. So if I was in a better spot, this would work much better.
So it was essentially a matching and or coordinated.
And what I'm getting is picking up different transmitters, same stations on different transmitters around the place.
Days, a full break away.
Takes on the line. Ball ends up with Quincy Dodd. She's over the 10.
There's a footy there.
Meters down from the West Tigers goal line.
West Tigers. That'll be the women's.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it's been around for, nearly 80 years now. And I remember my mum in this...
Yeah, these stations I wouldn't get. I don't know where that station is. It's not local.
Next Woodside, Bella and knock off cans, but off the back this train.
It's the racing station, of course.
Tackle there close to the line on round buyers. Now crossfield run by Rebecca Pollard.
Yeah, I don't know where that is. BBC, of course. Now, these stations I would not get during the day. That sounds like another sports station there.
It's a mountain, and it's found in Australia.
Now that's another transmitter from the ABC radio. So I'll get Rockhampton, I'll get some Sydney stations. In fact, that ABC may have come from New South Wales. Anyway, just thought we'd have a quick look around. I'll put it on shortwave 2. I don't know we'll get much. We get up at the islands there, New Guinea, Nauru. We'll absolutely get China all the time. Japan sometimes. Not getting much at all today. New Zealand has some shortwave stations that broadcast out to the islands off their coast. That's an English station, or English speaking. I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, just thought I'd have a quick run through. Sometimes it's better than that. Sometimes you can get some good stations. That volume dial is backwards. I keep turning it up when I want to turn it down and vice versa. Anyway, this radio was, it's not a fantastic radio. It doesn't present very well. But I learned a lot, and making the dials was one thing, like the glass cover there or the plastic cover. Another thing was I'm doing complex printing on this dial at the back here, and the clock as well. That's come up nice. Now initially I had that screw in the middle of brass. I left the brass, like took the radio out again and just put a bit of the red paint on it. I also centered the needle in the middle of the dial. I didn't worry about that till I had this in the case to find out where that was going to end up. And I reproduced the card here with the names on it for the knobs. The highlight, apart from the dial glasses, was that back panel, and using my laser cutter to cut a new one. I think I said before, the reason I bought the laser cutter was to do it. The reason I bought this radio is because it needed a new back cover. And a big thanks to Dave at the Radio Club. He provided the book covering material that I used on the back. So not a fantastic radio, but I'll put it up on the shelf with the other stuff. I'll plug it in. Maybe the clock will keep running for a while. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed the series on this Time Spot radio, and I hope you can join me for my next radio adventure.